So good morning, good afternoon, I'm not sure where we're at. So my name is Dave Burnside. I'm a senior consultant with Bass Business Solutions. I'm located in Winnipeg, and within the Manitoba space, I've been in the IT and management consulting, arena for about 30 plus years. And a part of Bass Business Solutions, which is a big Sage partner that has presence in locations across Canada and in the US as well. More specifically, as it relates to mCase, I've been working with mCase as their Sage business partner of record and their support source for probably about 15 years. So that's sort of how I'm involved with mCase.
And I am Diana Cadott. I am the Manager of Quality Assurance and Policy at the mCase Authority. I'm also the project sponsor for mCase. We call it mCase, it's mCase, but we got the name gifted to us from an elder, mCase Kashkatau, which means Métis sovereignty, or he or she can. And so that name is the name we use. We've shortened it to mCase. No disrespect intended, but so if you hear me refer to it as mCase, that is why. Why did we do it? To give frontline staff access to the case-specific financial information with the ability to do disbursement and purchase requests, to replace our outdated legacy system, and to reduce manual entry and duplicate redundant tasks for our finance team. So what does that actually mean? Well, basically we have a situation where a worker gets a piece of information that they need to turn into a financial monetary piece. So they let the admin know, and the admin will fill out the paper, and then that admin will take it to the person who needs to sign it, and then that person might take it to another person that might need to sign it, and then it eventually comes back to the admin, who then sends it over to finance, who manually enters it in so that it can be paid and get back to the worker. So that's our reality, or has been. It is no longer. So how are we doing it? Extensive support from our management, our CEO, CFO, and our board. Integrated Sage team was created with Redmayne, our service team, our finance team, and Bass Business Solutions. Collaboration between frontline workers, managers, and finance team, and review and standardization of front-end and finance procedures to support the project. Change is part of this. How you do things will change when you get a link between these two systems. So just be prepared for that.
Okay, so just to give you a little context on, before I get into what's going on with the integration between Sage 300 and mCase and back, for about the last 5 to 7 years, we've been working with several CFS agencies, primarily in Manitoba, but not exclusively, in taking a look and automating the information push into Sage 300 to better streamline their payment processes, and out the other side to generate things like, and I'll be careful about my terms, but provincial, federal funder reporting requirements, okay? So month-end reporting, that sort of thing. In doing that work with a lot of these agencies within our client group, we also got involved with Redmayne and mCase in conjunction with some of these projects. As it relates to mCase, mCase had already decided to go down the road of implementing some additional modules within their Sage 300 environment to better manage their finances for their two primary service agencies, mCase and mCase. And at the same time, they had made a decision to go ahead and do the Redmayne and mCase implementation. So in the course of that decision process and us working through the two projects in parallel, we decided to take a pause and take a look at the project itself and see if there was an opportunity to do some integration between mCase and Sage directly, so that we could get some information flowing across from mCase to Sage 300 to better improve the flow of information going back and forth. So we did embark on that process. It's probably almost a couple years ago now, from the initial conversations to where we are today. But now we've actually got some integration flowing from the front-end case management system back into the back-end financial system of Sage 300. The other consideration or observation here as well is that the front-end case management system, mCase, stays to be the source of record as far as the case management. Sage 300 is the finance system, okay? We're not trying to make the finance system look like a case management system, and we're not trying to make mCase look like a finance system. Where we've developed some interfacing that makes logical sense to improve the data flow back and forth between the systems and reduce some of the timeliness of data input, approvals, flow of information, duplicate entry reduction, and that sort of thing. So just very quickly, where we're integrating back and forth, we have the ability to do purchase orders in mCase. So a front-end worker could enter a purchase order, get it approved, and that would come across through the interface as a purchase request in Sage 300. Once it's approved, that PO number will flow back to mCase and be visible for the caseworker to know that that PO has been processed on the Sage 300 side. And then the processing of the PO, the invoices, receipts against that PO, all happens within finance because that's now in finance's control. So that's one of the items that's coming. Disbursement forms, this is all of your regular AP invoice transactions coming across from mCase that are entered in mCase, again, go through an approval process, they're assigned, they're tagged to a case, a child and care case, a prevention, protection, family case, whatever it happens to be. They're approved, they get pushed across through the interface and then magically become a batch of AP invoices that are processed on the Sage 300 side, okay? And again, all the finance and the actual printing of the checks and the verification of those batches, that's all under finance control, ultimately. What we're doing is just trying to shift the focus around to allow the front-end workers the ability to put that information into the system without sending a mountain of paper into finance to process it all. The last one, the placement payments. So this is kind of a nebulous term, but through the interface, so as everybody in this room probably knows, you've got a child in care, and the child in care has got a series of different rates and costs associated to them, okay? So placement payments is basically the calculation of what that foster parent payment should be for that month for that child in care based on their needs and their respite and their special rates and special needs, right? So I won't get into a lot of technical detail because there's a lot there, but basically through the interface, and this is a little bit of our magic, a little bit of Redbane's magic, it is calculating those payment amounts and pushing them across into Sage 300 as an invoice transaction for payment to the foster parent or caregiver. So that's the three main ones coming across. And then coming back into mCase, because finance is the system of record as far as Sage 300 is concerned, they are the only ones that have the ability to put in approved suppliers. So once those suppliers are in the system, we have the ability to push them back to mCase so that they're there and available for disbursement and PO entry in the future. I'll jump down to the bottom one, PO number confirmation. I mentioned that earlier, where we're just sending a confirmation back to indicate that PO has been processed by finance now. And then the middle one, agency allowance. So in the Sage 300 environment, in most cases, what we're doing is we're implementing a module called project and job cost, okay? Project and job cost allows us then to create a project, quote unquote, for each child in care, each family that's participating in a prevention program, protection program, that kind of thing. And all it is, without getting too technical, is a cost tracking mechanism, okay? So instead of us digging through GL accounts and trying to pull data extracts and all that kind of stuff, we can go into the PJC and take a look at the maintenance project for a particular child and see all the costs. Out the other side, got nothing to do with this integration, because we have all that information in PJC, we are able to generate federal and provincial billings, okay, for the children in care, which is a huge, huge thing for our client agencies so far. So it's not required to have project and job costs. That's completely up to you. If you don't need that level of reporting, the interfacing would still work. It's just going to basically pump across AP disbursements and POs and charge them off to a general ledger account instead of a project, and away we go. So the middle point is agency allowance. That's a term in Manitoba. I'm not sure if that goes into other jurisdictions or not, but basically the children in care have got the ability to earn or accumulate agency allowance money based on the days in care, $2.42, whatever it is in Manitoba. And then what we're doing is we have a special project that is created to track the amount that they've earned versus the amount that the social workers have spent on them, okay? This would be very similar to CSA, child tax credit, same concepts, but it's the agency allowance that we've been working on with Métis, okay? Next. prevents that.
So where are we at in our integration? mCase data and Sage 300 standardization is nearing completion. We've completed one round of user acceptance testing, and we are preparing for our final round of testing. We will be preparing our go live plans for putting the interface into production into the live environment. What are our benefits? Less paper, no more chasing down documents, no double data entry, more accurate amounts, and a simplified approval process. So what does this actually mean? This is how much we've automated. We've automated I ran this out in mid-September, and it's going back to December 2020. We have done 4,110 disbursements, 310 purchase orders, and 1,475 special rates all through mCase. Lessons learned. The need to change perspective on data entry. It's been kind of one of those things where entering a placement on your legacy system is one of those things that's administrative that you do after, because right now you're doing child welfare work. And so now we have to realize that no, that data actually is saying to the system, you are going to pay this person or you're going to pay this out. So we need to get ahead of that and kind of remember that the data is driving the boat. Testing, and more testing. You cannot do enough. You can, well, we've done, I think we're in our second round?
Second
round.
Sure.
Yeah, not third, second. And it's going very well, I might add. And another thing you want to look out for is one-offs. They occur in any system. Be prepared to think creatively about your procedures. So when you're getting mCase to talk to your financial system, you got to think creatively about how you build that in the front end and what things mean when you enter them. And so you're almost creating a language from one system to the other so that it can drive over Dave's bridge and get there. So yeah, that is basically our presentation.
I know we're kind of tight on time, folks, so just to keep lunch back on track, I'm happy to take your questions. Keep in mind that I'm around for the balance of the conference, and I believe that there's a mCase help desk, that I'm sure will draw a huge crowd, this afternoon, or the casino, one or the other. But I will be around. I will be around if folks want to chat separately on some of this stuff, because I can get into this for hours. But if we got a couple of minutes.
When do you see this rolling out to the mCase users like us?
It's very dependent on the financial platform that you're running. I mean, so right now, all the work that we've done is really on the Sage 300 front. So I don't know, we'd have to take a look at individual situations and figure out where you're at and what the plan would be. But once, mCase was pretty much, the front runner on getting this interface going. So I mean, once mCase is up and live, I mean, then that interface is more or less finalized. We're working on another project for an agency in Alberta currently. They're down the road on the mCase side. They've got a lot of work to do on the finance side. I mean, because they basically was a new start agency and had nothing. So they've got some work to do there yet. So relatively soon, I don't want to quote on exactly what's going to happen with mCase. I would assume though, within the next, I'll be optimistic. Okay, so within the next 6 months, they will be up and running. We're going into our last round of UAT. We're hoping to go live in November, December, right? To be honest. But then you got to let the dust clear and that sort of thing. But happy to talk about any agency that's got that is already running MK. They've got Sage 300. Well, okay. Well, let's just have a separate chat and figure out where you're at and how close we would be to getting a project started. So. But happy to chat about any of those things. I don't know. Who got their hand up first, ladies?
I just have a question. Do you have an active test environment that you're showing people?
Almost. How's that for an answer?
When would that be available?
Yeah, I can't say. Our closest implementation at this stage of the game is mCase. And we have been, you know, to be completely honest, we have been pivoting a little bit, you know, getting everything ready, and you just got to get some updates done, and then we got to wait, and then we got to pause, and we're still sort of in testing. But you know, fairly soon we should have a test environment where people can see what the interface is actually doing to the Sage 300 side.
So the question is, how does that work with the internet? With some communities, the internet is no gas.
Mhm.
So when mCase, because right now mCase already has issues with the internet, like when they put in the request or whatever, they have these three little balls, I'm sure everybody knows them, right?
Diana's predecessor hated those three.
They advance a little in our northern communities, and so when it saves and then we finally get these.
Yeah.
So how would that work?
Okay, so our interfacing, okay, so mCase data is in the mCase database, and I believe that's hosted, Sue, correct me if I'm wrong. So wherever that is, okay? So our data pulls coming back and forth between Sage 300 really are not focused at the community level. We're at the server level at that point. We're pushing information back and forth. So any issues or challenges with respect to a slow internet speed in the community for a caseworker to be entering something, whether they're entering a new placement or they're entering an AP disbursement, would be the same, you know, the same internet constraints, but it's not going to break our interface, because our interface is going to run at the back end, if you want to think of it that way. So that should be fine.
What wideband do you need for that communication between mCase and ACPAC?
Well, the communication between mCase and ACPAC,
Sorry,
yeah, or Sage 300, whatever we want to call it, right, is happening at the server, like, I'll call it at the server level, if you can imagine, right? So mCase has got your database, right? Or your agency's database is in mCase, hosted or wherever it is, Sue. And your Sage 300 database is either in your office, in your finance office, or that could be hosted too, whatever, okay? Our integration bridge is working between those two connections. So it's really not dependent on an internet speed issue within a particular community. It's really just the head office side, to be honest, I think.
You spoke originally about less paperwork and so on and so forth, and so I guess you were just giving us a high level, you know, agency to finance to agency. But what exactly does it, like, can you speak a little bit to the actual approval process? Like, is it the worker enters the information in and then automatically shoots off to the supervisor or whoever needs to sign off on it? Like, is there?
I will defer.
There is basically, yeah, there's an option. So where you would save the document or save it as a draft, there's another option that says send to supervisor. And MK has that built in and knows who your supervisor is. And then there's another request at the end that says, you know, does this need to be sent to a director of service? Or can you finalize it now? So they know whether or not they're allowed to finalize a certain amount, or if they have to push it forward to another
So it doesn't
level.
get lost in the system where you send it off thinking it's being dealt with,
No.
but it's really actually stuck somewhere in
Yeah.
cyberspace.
Well, and you can always see where it is.
Oh, good.
So you can always see who's already approved it, where it's already been, and where it's sitting. You can check that at any time.
So for Deanna and those guys, it says send to director of service. For your agency, it could say send to finance,
Yeah.
so that it's clear. So if you go send to supervisor, then once they approve it, their button would say send to finance, then it would go to finance, and then you would get a notification back saying it's been approved. So you would know that it got, but at any point in time, you can go to that file and check, and it'll show all the, it's submitted to, who's approved it, and where it sits now. So it shows all of that in that case.
Will it go to inboxes of supervisors like?
Yes,
does
just
now?
like your other material does now. In mCase, you will get those notifications based on how we align that within your mCase building.
And my understanding on the mCase side, like that approval process is something that is determined during your design phases, and it's built into, you know, unique probably to the individual agencies. The only reason I deferred is that, I mean, that would be an mCase design thing. I mean, Sage has got its own stuff, but we're not really doing any approval work there. It's all on the front end and the interaction between the different front end people. So
after that is being submitted and it's approved and it's being sent to Sage, what's the next step after? So let's say I'm sitting at my desk, does it get sent to my email stating that that's being processed, or how is it on that ACPAC side, or the Sage side, sorry?
It depends on the source document. If it's an AP disbursement, okay, and I'll just dumb that down. It's an invoice, okay. You know, a front-end worker has put in an expense, and it's charged to a child in care, a family, whatever it's doing, or it's just a whatever, a miscellaneous expense. It's approved and it's pushed, right? And basically, as soon as it's pushed over, it's tagged in mCase as being sent to Sage, and that's the end of it from an mCase perspective. Now, finance picks it up and they deal with it.
Well, that's the finance part I'm asking. So after finance gets it, what happens?
Okay, on an AP disbursement transaction, finance is getting, they're going to receive an AP invoice batch. Just to keep this real simple, they get an AP invoice batch that's unposted. They have the full ability to review that batch. We also have, in our integration bridge, I mean, we have data validation that's available, right, on that transaction coming across. So certain members of, and this is not an mCase thing, this is the integration doing it, based on what the data is looking like, you know, invalid vendor ID, wrong date, wrong this, wrong that's not following the rules to push that invoice into Sage, finance is going to be getting emails on those things, right, to notify them that something needs to be addressed here before this transaction can be processed. It'd be very similar to our the placement transactions that pay all the caregivers and foster parents, much more complex, but it's the same idea. We have all kinds of validations in there for those transactions, like what we're looking for from mCase, right? mCase has also done a ton of work on their side too, to ensure that the right information is flowing across. But at the end of the day, I mean, nothing's ever perfect, right? So we have edits and validations in there. So. Excel. So that was one of the big things that we were doing even before we got into the mCase integration. So, I mean, we have the ability, and we're leveraging project and job cost in a similar way to what you may be doing with your projects in Sage 50. It's just a little bit different.
Yeah.
And then those other things you were talking about is really that service continuum reporting that is coming from a whole bunch of variety of places, right? So I have an agency right now that, I mean, is only, they're a small agency and a part of the general authority in Manitoba, 100 children in care, and they're implementing all of the above. I mean, because they had to go through and they had to restructure their entire GL to be appropriate for the service continuum and all the reporting and blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't profess to be an expert at all the different provinces, but I mean, I've certainly seen a good smattering of all of that stuff, so.
Okay, so then my next one is, so say if tomorrow decides they want to do a compliance review with our agency.
Yep.
They're going to want to print off my entire GL, and then I have to, so Jane Joe, they want to know what that $16.83 payment was, and I need to show them the requisition that was approved by the social worker and what that entailed with the invoices.
Yep.
So right now, how we keep all those records is we have a binder for each child in care for the past 7 years, and these nice little filing cabinets. So if we have a compliance review, we just pull binder, but it would be nice if I could click on a tab in mCase and say, Jane Doe, here's her requisitions, and this is what we spent on her.
Okay, from a compliance perspective, okay, we can do that in Sage 300. So Sage 300, the project in Sage 300 is what's containing all of that detail, okay? And from there, I have full drill down capability from the project to drill back into the subledgers and see, oh, there's the invoice, there's the PO, there's this, there's that, okay?
Do you want to go on a date tonight?
It's only a matter of time for that to There you go, done. Should have brought my PO book. Okay, but yeah, like I want to be careful. I want to be careful about what's appearing in mCase and what's appearing in Sage 300. Because again, I've seen this and I've been involved in projects that have done it, and I've got the scars to show, right? You can't make the finance system a case management system, and you can't make the case management a finance system. You can't.
Right.
It doesn't work.
But it doesn't care about that. They just want.
No, yeah, the funders don't care.
Yeah.
They just give you this PDF or this Excel sheet and say, if you want your monthly check, then you do this. How you do it is your business,
Yeah.
right? And that's exactly why we got into a lot of the standardization in Manitoba, because of all of that reporting and all the manual processes. I mean, and I had agencies using the provincial billing template as their child list and this list and their supplement list, and like there was 14 copies of this thing floating all over the place, right? Because everybody needed their piece of the puzzle. So from a finance perspective, project and job cost would be the subledger that would give you all of the information about that if we're going to use a child in care, okay? From the time that they went into care, it would have all the history from a finance perspective. From PJC, you can drill back into your subledgers, see the AP invoices, see adjustments, see all that stuff. Like the only thing I was thinking about is this approval thing. Okay, that's a bit of a problem. Like we may see some of that through the interface pull, but how does that translate into the actual Sage 300 transaction? We'd have to, maybe explore that a little bit.
Because what they look for, I mean, not on wood, bite my tongue, whatever. It's been a while since we've had a compliance review, but what they look for is that they look at the case plan, and if this expense is part of the case plan, and if it's not, why was approved, and so you need those actual approvals with that client file to show that it is approved.
Yeah, no, I get you 100%, and
so that's why we have all these nice little.
Oh yeah. But like I say, I mean, maybe I don't know specifically the answer, but if you had specific, like an agency where mCase was fully up and running and Sage was fully up and running, okay, and the compliance people showed up, okay, and based on what I just described, then it would be probably a tag team effort between the front end folks to be able to interpret the mCase detail that was there, and somebody from finance to be able to provide the financial detail. And based on the two together, you've now fulfilled whatever the request is, right? Because again, we just want to be careful not to be pushing, like we don't want to be pushing and pulling information back and forth. There's no point in recreating project and job cost inside mCase. Like what for? It doesn't need to be there, right?
We already have it.
We got it over here. So you got to try to find that balance, and that's what we're trying to do.
At least the approval where it gets sent directly to the supervisor, click button, then it goes to.
That's all mCase doing that.
Because right now we have to print it, scan it, email it.
Oh yeah.
Print it, scan it, email it.
Yeah, that's So the mCase automation and the customizable approval workflows that they do, that's what's covering all that stuff. Okay, gang, we're probably out of time. Lunch is next door. I will be around, so if folks want to connect with me, talk more specific about your individual situations, feel free.